cabin. A hiker decided to go on a hike by himself, something he was not very used to. The whole day was normal. Grass and bushes engulfed his surroundings. He enjoyed being outdoors in the rocks. Nothing seemed strange to him. That was until he was making his way back to his base. He figured an 8-hour hike was good enough. The sky was already getting dark and he needed to get back fast. What was odd was how much he didn't recognize the trail back. He began to panic. Night had already taken over, and all he had was a torch and no clue how to get back. He knew it was already too late and too dangerous to keep going through the perilous forest. He began to worry that he would have no shelter for the night when, almost luckily enough, he stumbled across a broken down cabin. It was dark, and it seemed like no one had visited it in years, but he knew it was the only place where he could rest until daylight, especially since his torch was running out of durability. He knocked on the door a few times, but no one answered, so he let himself in, where strangely enough, a perfect bed fitted with one person awaited him in the center. He knew that if the owner came back, he could explain himself. He was sure the owner wouldn't mind, or was even probably dead, so he went ahead and got himself comfortable in bed. As he tried to sleep, he couldn't ignore the collection of paintings around the room. Portraits of strange-looking people all peering at him, each wearing a smile that sent chills up his spine. Not too long after this, his exhaustion from the hike got the best of him, and he was able to ignore the faces. The next morning he got up early and was shocked to see that there were no paintings around the room, but windows! Dun dun dun! Ooh, spooky.
Some friends and I were doing some night fishing on the pond. We were sitting along the shoreline with a nice fire going, accompanied by the usual idle talk and just a few mite fuzzers, when suddenly everyone just stopped talking, like a switch was flipped off. We were all staring across the pond and felt as if something or someone was staring back. It was a very uneasy feeling, to which some of the group tried to shake it off with the typical macho humour, when a blood-curdling sound erupted from the other side of the shore that froze everyone in their tracks. This sound was unlike any other that I have heard, and it made every hair on my body vibrate and tingle. The only way I can describe it is it sounded like a wild person with no language skills being gutted alive. No words, just this high-pitched, blood-curdling scream. Nobody moved or said a word. We all just sat there fixed in our stare, when just as suddenly, a second scream was let loose with even more force than the first. By this time, several of us were sprinting to our bases, that we were within 20 to 30 feet and retrieving various weapons. We all sat there quietly with our eyes fixed, staring towards the opposite shore, watching the light from our fire reflecting off the rocks. Hours later we packed it up and left, feeling very unsettled. We never did figure that one out, or even hazard a guess as to what was on the opposite bank.
My buddy and I would occasionally go hunting together when we were kids. I was 14 and my friend knew a guy who owned what seemed to be half of the garden. I mean, the amount of property this guy owned was ridiculous. He let people hunt out there, and if he trusted you, he'd let you camp out there for a couple of nights if you wanted. I loved camping out there more than I did just going hunting for a few hours then coming home. I liked the woodsman feel of living out in the woods. We woke up early one morning and hiked into the woods. It was still dark when we got to our stand. We didn't hear anything, not even birds. I remember my friend commenting on how, looking back, it should have been a sign. Frustrated, we pack up and look for a spot to camp, and we would set up again later that evening. My buddy suggested that we go deeper in to better our chances of seeing something, so that's what we did. We hiked for a few hours, found a clearing, set up a small camp, got settled, and passed the time freaking ourselves out by talking about bombardiers and other woodland creatures. We hike a ways away from the camp, set up our bait, and wait. Again, nothing. We get back and our little base has been ruined. We thought it was just the wind or something, and we didn't put it up right, and it collapsed. We didn't think much of it. Since we didn't see or even hear anything all day, we decided to leave the following day and try again later that week. We settle in for the night, build a really small fire, and just relax. Again, not even aphids are making a sound. I remember thinking how odd it is to be this deep into the grass and only hear one or two birds the whole trip. We go to sleep soon after settling in. It's pitch black, middle of the night. I wake up for some reason just to try to go back to sleep. I'm in that half asleep, half awake phase where I hear laughter. I kind of jolt awake but don't hear it anymore, so I figured it was just a dream. I lay back down, and a few minutes later, I hear it again. It continues and gets pretty loud. I wake up again, but this time my friend is up too. He whispers and asks, "Did you hear that?" And this is when my heart dropped. He heard the laughing too. It wasn't a dream. We heard it again, but it was faint, and now that I'm actually awake, I'm paying attention to it. It sounded kind of like several people laughing in unison. It wasn't cackling or hysterical laughter, but just kind of normal laughter. It didn't last but for maybe 5-6 long seconds. I've never felt that much fear before in my entire life. We didn't hear it anymore after that, but needless to say, we didn't get any sleep. We packed up as soon as the sun came up and got the fuck out of there.
Ooh, how did you like those spooky stories?
If you enjoyed the stories that you listened to, make sure to leave a like on the video, subscribe, and share with all of your friends who also like spooky stories. Bye!